everybody. If you're new around here, welcome. If you're not new around here, welcome back. My name is Alexis Carr, and I am finally uploading another YouTube video after saying that I returned a month ago. It's just been very hard to record one. Every time I tried to record a video, something went wrong. I tried to record a Genshin Impact video. Video didn't even record. It was my first time using OBS. I tried to record a video like the one I'm doing today with my sisters. I tried to do a video in which my sisters took over my YouTube channel. They recorded their own YouTube video, but nobody wants to see that. And if you do,
hey y'all.
Over her channel.
But yeah, and then I tried to record another YouTube video and my uncle and my grandma just kept interrupting me. And I'd be like, oh, I'm trying to record a video. And then they'd just start asking me questions or like talking to me, or asking me questions and talking to me. Thank you guys for being so patient through that intro. But today, what are we doing? What are we doing today? I will be reading another one of my Wattpad drafts. Well, let's just say I was a little nervous. I'm a little nervous to read it out loud and post it on the internet, but it was already posted on the internet because it's one of my Wattpad stories. So also, if you guys hear my grandpa's neighbors, they are so loud. They're always stomping around and like dropping stuff. If you hear like thudding, that's what that is. I also have the air conditioner on because I know I'm dressed as if it's like 60 degrees, but it's actually 100. But anyways, I don't have a screen recording going because last time I tried to do a screen recording, it was really hard to keep up with. I'm trying to think of different ways on how I can record this video a little more effectively, like introduce the characters and then go on with the story. Do I read it straight out? Do I just describe it to you guys? What are we reading today, Alexis? Today, we're reading a story that I wrote in 2019. So I feel like, was it in 2019? It's on here in 2018. It's something I wrote when I was in high school, and I was going to be like, oh guys, I was a high schooler. Of course I wrote this while I was a teenager, and that's why it's so freaking toxic. But I feel like I have no excuse now. I can't even say that. If you guys are interested in this video and want to see more like this, then don't forget to like and subscribe because I will definitely be uploading more. I have plans for the future on what to do with my videos. You guys are gonna love it. I moved back to the Bay in a month, so the video ideas with people that I have here I need to do before I leave. So I'm really planning to be busy, but I also need to work. All right, so without further ado, this is Innocence. Sin Carter and Bradie Deaudrey never associated with each other. Aside from having a few classes together, neither had ever said a word to the other. That continued to be true until Bradie's mom is murdered and Sin is arrested for it. Their lives begin to intertwine, revealing that the secrets that leave the pair realizing they were always involved in each other's lives. In character murdered somebody's mom. All right, May 2016. I would never forget that day as long as I lived for two very simple reasons. Sin Carter and I didn't know each other whatsoever. We never made eye contact or said two words while attending the same high school and sitting directly beside one another. I watched in horror as the police officers rushed into our classroom with their guns drawn. I watched Sin sit calmly in his desk as if he knew it was he they were looking for. I watched as Sin Carter was pressed against his desk, a gun to his spine, and handcuffs suffocating his wrist. I watched them arrest Sin Carter. There's a lot of watching in this paragraph. The officer who was handling him forced Sin from his chair. I was utterly amazed because Sin Carter, despite his name, was a cooperative person. He glanced down at me for the first time in my life and our eyes met for a split second. Enough time to flash a look of regret my way before he was hauled out of the room. My classmates were crouched beneath their desks, hidden behind one another, and halfway out of the window. They witnessed as the four remaining officers turned to me, removed their hats, their heads bowed in respect as one of them spoke. Bradie Deaudrey, we need you to come with us. Your father, my dad, my blood ran completely cold. Sin Carter had done something. The regret in his eyes was specifically for me. Bradie's dad is a police officer, and that's why she takes it as like, as soon as they say your dad, like, oh, my dad, what happened to my dad? You know, because why else would they be like taking their hats off and everything? I don't know if that's what police officers do. I'm sorry if anything I ever wrote back then was like completely inaccurate. I am not the best whenever it comes to research. I don't think I ever will be. My favorite genre to read and like watch on TV is historical fiction or like religious fiction, etc., etc. But I will never be able to write it because who is researching that? Unless somebody gives me like a template and is like, here's all of the basics that you need to know, then I probably wouldn't because research is hard. I already try to research words and meanings of stuff in different languages just to put it in. Like, that gives me a headache. We're sorry for your loss. The entire school knew by that time what was going on. However, when I was escorted out of the school building, I found my dad standing safe and sound directly in front of me. The feeling that hit me when he turned to face me wasn't relief, it was embarrassment. He stood in front of me in his officer uniform, but he wasn't smiling. Dad? The well-composed demeanor of my dad was replaced by puffy red eyes and a bloody left hand. There was anger as well as sadness painted on his features, but I was still clueless. The school was surrounded by caution tape, and Sin was being shoved into a nearby patrol car with a busted lip and a bruising cheek. Bradie. Wait a minute. Before he could finish his statement, the wheels dusted themselves off and began to turn in my head. Sorry for your loss. Your mom's been killed. That's the end of that prologue. I've never written a prologue before in my life, so I think whenever I wrote this, I literally looked up what a prologue was and was like, I'm still confused, so I'm just gonna attempt at writing one. And I did. I did, and it looks like it turned out fine. And then in 2018, I will be editing the prologue so much that'll say something completely different. Don't worry, it doesn't change the storyline. All right, and then chapter 1, several months later. So this story is so, it has 16 parts right now. I never finished it though. I forget what happened. I think whenever I went to college is just whenever I stopped writing because I was so busy doing my college work and work. And so I just made it was really hard to find time to write things. I think of a lot of things. I have an entire folder in my Google Docs that's like stories to write or like drafts or ideas. It's called ideas, and it has folder after folder after folder after folder with documents of just like synopsis after synopsis after blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm trying to say. So it was kind of hard to think of all of these things and then come back to it and be like, oh, what was I writing? So I always leave little notes for myself, but at the time on Wattpad there weren't notes for me to leave. It was literally just the page and you just write. I haven't used Wattpad in a really long time. I downloaded it on my phone and this is the first time I'm opening it just for this video. All right, so chapter 1. My feet weighed like magnets attracted to hardwood as I descended the stairs leading into the living room. A light shone from the kitchen. Shadows of moving boxes and a misplaced bookcase cascaded against the carpet of the empty room. Muffled sounds reached my ears once I entered the living room that I immediately recognized to be my dad's voice. Since moving into our new house, he would wake up in the middle of the night and go into the kitchen to talk to her. Her, of course, being my mom in all her Holy Spiritness. Every night, I sat at the top of the stairs in my penguin pajama pants with my knees hugged to my chest and just listened. Only a few days ago, I learned that it pained him to look at me. It was like being in high school all over again. So penguin pants, I actually have. I don't know if I have them on me. They might be at my grandma's house, but I do have them. Don't know if it was important information or if it helps with the description of the character. So they moved into a new house after finding out the mom was killed. A couple of months later, Sin gets arrested for that. The dad is now mourning the loss of his wife. The daughter, I don't remember. I'm sure we'll find out soon. I don't remember if she really knows the extent of what happened because it's an open investigation, so I'm pretty sure you can't share information about that. Though they do think it's Sin. Rosalind, he muttered into his coffee cup before letting out an audible sob. She's our daughter, and I can't even. There was a slight pause and the sound of him lowering his cup into the marble island before he continued. It was evident that my dad was crying due to the trembles in his syllable as he choked on the words. I can't even look at our own daughter without seeing you, Rosalind. Do you remember the first day we met, how you looked just like her? I tortured myself with the memory since hearing him say that. I did my best to avoid him, and when it became obvious he was already avoiding me, it hurt less. I even covered the mirror in my bathroom with black paint and tossed away all of my hand ones. I feel like I got that from somewhere, but I think I might have read something or watched something where the person didn't want to see their face, so they painted their mirror black. I'm sure it's a reference to something, I just don't remember what it was. Rosalind, Deaudrey, and I were identical to say the least. We both shared black curly hair, golden brown eyes, matching scars on our cheek from a car accident only a few years prior to her death. In public, people assumed we were sisters, if not twins, due to the aged features of her face. I wanted to see if you were okay, I admitted softly. Dad turned to me, but his eyes remained on nothing besides the air, besides the air beside my head. Oh, I'm assuming he's like not looking at her like how I do with my phone all the time. Whenever I record on my phone, I don't know if you guys noticed that I just look like anywhere else but the camera. He gave an aggressive shake of his head as if not looking at me wasn't helping. I'm fine, going to head to work. Do you need a ride to school? I tightened my blanket around my body and shook my head. Dad, it's 1 a.m. You should really go back to bed. He rubbed at his nose and tossed his coffee cup in the sink where it shattered into a million pieces. I jumped at the sound and watched him gather his gun and badge from a nearby counter. My dad wasn't easy to anger, but when he got mad, it was hard not to be terrified. I actually modeled that after my own dad because My dad has never been angry with me, but I've seen him get angry, I think, one time in my life, and I almost cried. I did cry. I don't know. It's really hard whenever people that you've never seen angry before get angry, because it's kind of like, whoa, I didn't know you were capable of such intense emotions. His lip twitched like he wanted to say something, but in the end, Dad opened the door and disappeared behind it without a muttered apology. I woke up the next morning at 4 to get ready for school. The lousy 3 hours of sleep had to do me until I got home from school, so I did my best to exert the least amount of energy as possible. Brushing my teeth and doing my hair were done mostly with my eyes closed. I figured that half asleep was the battery saving mode for those activities at least. People ask me, how do I live my life if I hardly ever sleep? And I just say that I run off of battery saving mode. I do everything with the least amount of energy possible. Like the bare minimum amount of energy, I'll use that. If I have to drive somewhere, obviously I have to exert the most amount of energy, but if I don't have to do anything, I will just chill because I'm probably just exhausted, and if I try to do anything else, I'll be miserable. I tossed on a powder blue hoodie I knew would be wrapped around my waist by the end of the day, and a pair of faded blue shorts before snatching up my phone and backpack and exiting the house. Moving halfway across town a month ago only made my walk an extra 10 minutes, but I was still expected to leave at 6 a.m. in order to make it in time for breakfast. I locked the door behind me and tucked my key back into my phone case and stumbled down the sloped driveway onto the sidewalk. Although the sun hadn't risen yet, it felt like it had. The breeze Mom used to swear was teeth chattering cold grabbed onto my skin like a pair of sweaty hands, and it didn't help that I wore a hoodie that was already breathing warmth up my neck. I pressed my headphones into my ear and turned up whatever song was playing. For the past few months, I would just click on a random radio, let a song play with little interest. My hands were shoved into my hoodie pocket once I passed the end of our property, and I started off down the street. The light in the neighboring house caught my attention, but I paid no further mind to it. Almost completely down the street, I was shaken out of my music-induced slumber by the sound of an engine. It was only 5 seconds worth of sound until the motorcycle zoomed past me, leaving behind a trail of red light you'd think was just in movies. The rider glanced back at me when it reached the corner, and my heart dropped once our eyes met through the slit of his helmet. Underneath the gold street light and beneath the darkened leather jacket was undeniably and unmistakably Sin Carter. Honestly, this entire piece right here, I don't know. Maybe whenever I was writing this one, I don't know, because it's so like bad, but the entire thing just flows so awkward. I don't know if it's just me. I feel like a lot of these sentences could definitely be written differently. The thought of Sin returning to school had me so shaken up that I puked 10 minutes away from school. My hand still shook in my lap as the possibility of him showing his face anywhere around me calculated itself in my head. It was a pretty high chance because his locker was right next to mine. I mean, the guy may be crazy. My friend Ingrid Taft lifted one of my French toasts from my tray and dumped it on her own. But you gotta admit, he's smoking. Claire elbowed her and whispered hushed. He killed her mom. I feel like if I had to be one of these characters in this friend group, it would probably be Ingrid, because never mind. You know what? Yeah, it'll probably be Ingrid. That's it. I'm just gonna stop there. My throat tightened as I looked up at them. I was really hoping the return of Sin Carter wouldn't have a big effect on me, but as usual, I was wrong. If my dad knew he had been released and sent home, he would have a lot of explaining to do. Although there was a sickening fear and a deep pain in my chest, I had to play it off like everything was fine. Do you think I could move into your locker for a bit? Claire nodded, her head bobbing like a bobblehead that had just been dropped into the backseat of a monster truck. That's how I imagine she's moving her head. Whoa, that doesn't feel good. What up, losers? A tray slammed down beside me, and I was introduced to a bleached out emo girl we all knew and loved. Reed's hair was a bright red this time, her lip and tongue piercing shining more than they did before. Tell me again, why do you hang out with me? Isn't it supposed to be why I hang out with you? Ingrid raised her eyebrow and started on our conjoined breakfast I was sure would be gone before my appetite picked up. Reed rolled her eyes and laughed. What good would that do my ego? What ego? Claire scoffed. I just sat back and watched the girls bicker playfully. With every insult slipping out of Ingrid's mouth came a sarcastically daring grin from Reed and an equally clever comeback from Claire. We were the unlikely quad of friends who were tossed together during a school-wide lock. Oh, a school-wide lock? It's supposed to be a school-wide lockdown, I think, in our freshman year. It was a 24-hour event, and Claire had practically gone insane and threatened to if she didn't stop reading the Notebook aloud on repeat. I always have friend groups, and I've noticed that whenever you have friend groups, you always have the person that you're the closest with, but you guys are all close together. Like, you guys could all be together, you know, but there's just one person that you vibe with the most out of everyone. Although I wasn't particularly happy, I was forced to think on the bright side. If I shared lockers with Claire and Sin and I didn't have classes together, it being a new school year and all, everything would be fine. Dad would have an explanation for Sin's reappearance, and I was sure it wasn't something I couldn't handle. Reed's hand waved in front of my face. My entertained grin fell, and I realized I wasn't even paying attention to them anymore. Yeah. What's wrong with her? Reed asked impatiently. Spill. Sin is back, Ingrid blurted. I looked up at them and gave a reassuring smile as the bell rang over our heads. Bodies moved around, dumping their trash into nearby trash cans, heading to class, but Reed's hand on my knee kept me from moving. We were the only group still seated when the janitor circled the quad with their trash cans. Talk to me, baby bear, Reed urged, although she came off as a bit of a jerk and the most of the time extremely narcissistic. Aria Reed had a caring and compassionate side to her. Reed, what is she supposed to say? That she's perfectly fine? But I am fine, I spoke up. My voice caught all of their attention and I couldn't help but turn my head somewhere else. It was hard to talk wholeheartedly towards them when all of their eyes were burning into my face. Reed's hand was removed from my knee and she stood up with both of our trays in hand, the late bell earning a regretful sigh from Ingrid before we all decided to head into the school building. If Sin is out, then it means he didn't do it, right? They had valid statements and witnesses saying they saw him at the scene of the crime. Reed groaned out and spun on her heel, treading the hall backwards and her gaze falling on all of us. All they have is a bunch of bullshit from people who obviously had a grudge against him. No one would have grudges against him if he wasn't such a home-wrecking thief, Claire pointed out. Home-wrecking thief? Because it isn't the women who threw themselves at him's fault. Huh. How it is? The police couldn't get physical proof that Sin was even present during the murder. They had no proof that he even did it. Claire raised her hands in surrender. Calm down there. Besides, we shouldn't even be talking about this and Bradie is here. Before they could go on another argument, I pushed between the three girls, grabbed onto Reed's hand. You guys have a nice class. We have to go this way. Ingrid and Claire waved at me. The content smiles on their faces told me their conversation on how guilty Sin is wasn't over. Reed and I made our way through the hall silently, the only noise being a few obnoxious laughs from the classrooms and the clicking of Reed's thigh-high boots against the tile. I hope you keep an open mind about this, Bray. I get you are upset about your mom, but a person is innocent until proven guilty. It wouldn't be fair to him if you didn't give him a chance to explain himself. As much as it hurt to see them treating it as some game of tic-tac-toe, I couldn't help but giggle at their silly antics. And that's the end. At the end of the chapter, though, I actually have a thing that says question of the chapter, QOC, that says, how would you feel if the person accused of killing one of your parents was released from prison in order to prove themselves? I know. Nobody gets released from prison to prove themselves in real life. But listen, all right, this was an imaginary world of a 16-year-old girl, all right? I could make the rules of the universe and bend them as I please. I know it makes no sense, right? That Sin would be able to get out of jail in order to prove himself innocent. It makes absolutely no sense at all. And I knew that while I was writing it. It made no sense at all. But that didn't change my mind. I continued to write it and I still uploaded it, 16 whole parts of it. But my only thing is reading this again. I always knew this wasn't one of my best works. The story is, one, extremely toxic. Like, there are tropes in it that I regret ever writing or thinking of. Again, I was a teenager and it's Wattpad, I guess. You know how, like, teenagers write on Wattpad. Would get me canceled in a minute, maybe. I do not think this was one of my best works ever. However, I did want to do a video on it because, again, it was one of my works. And so everything we do read is going to seem very bland in the beginning because I just have events like main event, climax, etc., resolution, whatever. I'm good at that, but the introduction part is like really hard. Sin is, I don't want to say one of my favorite characters, but he's really caring. He's comes off as like a bad boy to like the girls and stuff because of just how he is or who he is. Sin is seen as like this really bad guy throughout the story, and he's treated like horribly by everyone because of the fact that everyone thinks that he's a murderer, right? It's called Innocent. The like little subtitle thing is whatever happened to innocent until proven guilty, because of the fact that no one treats him that way. He gets rejected for like jobs and he's just trying to do better for himself because of the fact that people think that he's a filthy murderer. He gets rejected by people. His friends no longer want to hang out with him. The only friends he really has, one of the girls' uncle. A lot of things happen in the story, but I feel like in the first chapter, nothing really happened, right? Or am I just missing something? I can't even say that I have a favorite character in this story because I don't remember any of them. I remember Sin has a little sister and his parents are never around because they're like in debt and so they're trying to save save themselves. They're really rich. Everybody thinks that's how Sin got out of jail to begin with. Decline of the father's relationship with his daughter, the budding relationship between Sin and the daughter, but not in like a romantic sense, more of a dutiful, I promise I could prove myself and I really want to apologize to you. Conflicts between the friend group, right, and like the relationships between them. When I think that's the best thing about writing, well, I don't know, to me, does that make me lonely? I get really close with my characters. I think every writer is like this though, I hope, where your characters are like an imaginary family to you, your imaginary friends, if you will, but there's so many of them. And yet you place yourself in this world in which they live and you kind of just go through life with them. That's what I like the most about writing. I did insert a lot of my real life things in this one. For example, the references to my dad, basing the friend group off of the friend group that I had at the time. A lot of things that I did myself, you know, inserting myself and my life experiences and the people around me in the story and basing them, the characters off of them. I think I did that the most in this one than in anything else that I ever did. I have been writing a lot more recently, and I have been writing something that, and I could read that as something more recent than something that I read or wrote a really long time ago. Can't really remember the characters that much to have a personal connection with them, but I can say that in this one, I do like Sin. He's a victim, if anything. He's not really a perpetrator. He's not a criminal. He's nothing. He's a victim of a lot of things, and I think that's what makes me like him the most. I do have a record of liking the villain characters, but Sin is not a villain character. I really don't have much left to say about that one. I really like this story, like in my head. However, the like execution on paper is a little wonky. Maybe I could try rewriting them sometimes. I really hope my camera didn't stop at any point during that, because if it did, I will cry. The video stopped right before I did my outro. I also was watching back the footage and I realized I look so weird and like exhausted and tired in that video. I promise you, I'm actually not exhausted and tired. The video is gonna be all blurry and everything because it wasn't focused on my face again, and I just can't record that again. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like this video, make sure to like. If you guys want to see my face again, make sure to subscribe. If you guys want to keep up with my stuff, make sure to subscribe. If you guys want to just say hi, you guys can comment, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much for watching, and bye.